When you do your scoring session, you come back here. That's all done in Pro Tools, right?
No, Cubase. I do everything in Cubase.
No.
But the recording at the
recording
stage is done in Pro Tools.
Okay, so you get a Pro Tools session. How are things broken out? Because you'll then bring things back here.
Yes.
And how do you transfer there's so much material. Do you get stem mixes from them and then import them back into Cubase?
Yeah. So the person I usually work with, who's the all talented Alan Myerson, and he's been recording film scores forever. And he was also the first guy that wanted to meet me when I came to LA. So I threw out a couple, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll meet you." So we were sitting at a diner like 8 o'clock in the morning, drinking coffee and pancakes, and just talk about tech stuff. And so he's usually the one that, if I'm done recording, you're talking about like sometimes up to 50 microphones.
Yes.
And so I will give the 50 microphones to him, and then he will he will make that into a set of stems. And I usually want things in quad. I know that we work in a 5.1 environment in general, or Atmos. But usually the center speaker is left out of the music, just like a little bit. They want to use the center speaker primarily for dialogue and some special effects.
Yeah.
So I get quad mixes from him, and then it's easier for me to handle. So I get 6 or 8 quad mixes from him. I import that into Cubase, and then I start my mixing process. And another thing is that most directors want total control even over the instrumentation. So you're forced to record strings, brass, woodwinds, percussion, absolutely completely separate. And that makes it very hard sometimes for the orchestra to perform.
Sure.
Especially if there's like tricky lines that are handed off from the first violins into the flutes, and from the flutes into the bassoons, into the clarinets, and then into the cello and the viola, for instance. So, which now means the violins are playing, it stops, and then it continues. And the same for the woodwinds that need to start at a very awkward moment. So usually there's like a little bit of editing involved to move the recording a little to the left or to the right to make the transition more seamless. But yeah, there's not many film scores at this point that get recorded the old school way with with like 75 or 80 people in one room and everybody records at the same time. It does still happen, but it's not the norm.
Why do they want to have control of that?
Sometimes directors would say, I don't like the woodwinds here, just take them out. Or I think the brass is not loud enough, we need more brass. And if you have just a 5.1 mix of the full orchestra recording, it's very hard to do that.
Yeah.
But this also comes with that digital age. Just want to have control about absolutely everything. And sometimes I've seen remarkable things happening in the mix where the director wants the music loud, but he also wants the dialogue to be heard. So then we could, for instance, take the woodwinds that have a tendency to sit in the same frequency range as talking, but just taking it down by 2-3 dB, you still feel the power of the music, but now the dialogue just really cuts through, like really clear. So these are very cool tools to have when you're mixing.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. This is actually Rick Beato 2. I've had it since the beginning of my main channel, and many of you are not subscribed. As a matter of fact, 87% of the people that watch this channel regularly are not subscribed. So I encourage you to hit the subscribe button on this channel and on my main channel. This will help me get even more of my dream guests and help continue to grow both channels. Thank you.
The sample libraries are so good nowadays. It's amazing. So there's really very little guesswork for the directors nowadays.
Yeah, but there's also a downside to it. And the downside is that, and I noticed this now because I just started playing violin 5-6 weeks ago, and I'm a crappy violinist, so don't get me wrong, but even in the 6 weeks that I'm playing with this instrument, I want to understand the string instrument. So when you write for a string group, well, first of all, my respect for these guys have risen beyond the roof. It was already extremely, I'm always extremely respectful for these musicians, but now that I'm trying to play one of the hardest instruments to learn to play, and myself, I'm just like, man, these guys, 15,000-20,000 hours of practice and getting really good at their instrument. And this is a quote directly from Conrad: when you stand in front of an orchestra, there's like 200,000 to 400,000 hours of extreme experience sitting in front of you. So you better use it, instead of... so even with my 6 weeks crappy violin player, I now understand there's like 10 different ways to play a staccato note. But if you go to a sample library, there's maybe 1, maybe 2, and then all the ornamental stuff you can do on any instrument. And most sample libraries don't offer that very detailed. And if they do offer it, it's going to take 5 weeks to program a 3-minute piece of music.
Right.
And yes, I mean, I get demos from bedroom composers, and I'm just baffled how good it sounds. But they have all the time in the world to play around with all these details.
Yeah.
And the profession that I'm in, everything needs to be done yesterday.
Right.
So there's you can focus on like maybe 4 or 5 libraries and use the main articulations. So what I'm heading at is that the writing for films have been dumbed down. Because of time, you need to show the director what it's like, and they fall in love with what it is. So then, when you record the live strings on the live brass, and you go very ornamental with all these things, he would sometimes say, "I just want to go back to the samples. I liked it better."
Wow.
So it's tricky. It's very tricky, and even I was talking yesterday very briefly to David Newman, also a fantastic composer.
Yeah.
But even he says, like, he's a paper and pencil guy, but he needs to make mock-ups for the directors. He needs to show.
Because everybody expects it now.
Yeah, everybody expects it now.
Yeah.
And I would say that credit solely goes to one person who I actually call one of my better friends, and that is Mr. Zimmer. Mm-hmm. He single-handedly changed film scoring forever in Hollywood by introducing the samplers. Introducing the samplers. But I think I'm not sure for a fact, but I think his colleague composers just hated him just because of that. Because everybody was fine with the paper and pencil and just playing stuff on the piano, and then Hans came to town with just racks of samplers. To showcase the director what the sound of the film would be, and then it only took 2 years, and then everybody wanted that, because it was so incredibly convenient. So whatever happens with Hans, but that is like incredible credit, if you will, to change film scoring forever. We'll never go back to the old ways, unfortunately enough, because I am not a paper and pencil guy, but I see the paper and pencil composing as a traditional artisan bakery. Mm-hmm. In Holland, it was all about bakeries. Like every street corner had a bakery. Most of them are gone right now. There are massive grocery stores where they sell pre-produced bread from factories. And so I really hope that art form of that tradition, because I am not a composer like that, and I look at these people with so much respect and so much in awe, and I really hope that craft is gonna stay, and a new league of crafted composers will stand up, and not just computer guys.
If I were to ask you what your favorite film score of all time is, just from your or your favorite movie with film score,
it obviously changes. There's one of the videos I really liked that you had was like 10 best bass parts in rock and roll or something like that. But that's potentially the take that you had on it on that specific point in time. If you do a video next year, it's like, oh, I should have included.
I just read the comments and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it's like, I should have included John Wetton, when he was playing with Yes, in the late '60s, early '70s. Or we should have Tony Levin in there with like.
I did have Tony Levin though.
King Crimson.
Not with King Crimson though. I had him with Peter Gabriel, but yeah.
So my pick would have been Elephant Top. How he plays that on the stick.
On the stick. Well, I did the best keyboard sounds. It was one of my last videos, and I didn't put Bob O'Reilly, The Who. And because I was thinking keyboardists, and I wasn't thinking Pete Townsend, but that's like one of the most classic keyboard parts of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like for me, one of the most classic keyboards parts must be Jump. Eddie Van Halen with his guitar, and just like walks up to the keyboard, crack, 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 crack. I mean, like
That's a total signature part that you just.
Yeah.
You know, it's always the things that pop into your head first when you start to think about these lists.
And second best keyboard part would be Miles Davis, the live album We Want Miles.
Oh yeah.
When he had the Dream set up, you
Yeah.
know, just Marcus Miller on bass, Mike Stern on guitar, John Scofield on guitar.
Yeah.
And Mike Stern was like a super young kid at the time. But there was this rack of keyboards, and he would just like walk around with his like trumpet like this, and every now and then. It's just like a massive orchestral hit, from one of the keyboards. Like I still remember that.
Oh, that was those were good times back then.
Yeah, because because I come from Holland, and one of the great things that Holland has is the festival North Sea Jazz.
That's one of the festivals I always wanted to go to.
Yeah, it's really great. It's really great. But I mean, he played there in that time period, you know. So I've never seen him before that. I've seen him. Like after Tutu, when he made Tutu with Marcus Miller, it's one of my favorite records. But back to film score. So it changes over time. But one that's always in the top 5 is Blade Runner, the Vangelis score.
Amazing.
Not only because he uses synthesizers, but it also the way that he used music against what happens in the picture was very groundbreaking, and that system has been overused by a lot of different composers after that.